We're a provider of purpose-built student accommodation. We set our business up in Australia about 5 years ago, and the purpose of the business is really it started with the premise that being a student didn't mean you needed to compromise on quality, and so we've really set ourselves the goal of designing the best student accommodation that's available here in Australia. Student accommodation in Australia is desperate for more supply. We've seen in other countries around the world that have a large number of foreign students, for example the US and the UK, that purpose-built and in our case designer student accommodation has been very popular. And our business started in the UK, and we really saw an opportunity to step into the market here in Australia where purpose-built student accommodation is really in short supply. At the moment there's only a purpose-built bed for 1 in every 10 students, and so obviously there's great tailwinds for a sector like ours. Well, higher education is one of the largest industries in Australia. It's grown to the extent now that it's the 3rd largest export in Australia. Australia is one of the most popular destinations with foreign students, and it has some great geographical advantages over its competing countries such as the US and the UK. For example, it's in a much more conducive time zone for Chinese students. So it's a very popular destination, and we really saw a great demand for purpose-built student accommodation here in Australia. The vehicle we've set up here in Australia is a typical stapled trust structure. So we have active income coming into a company, and we've set up a trust that owns the real estate, the student accommodation assets. It's a very common structure for investment into real estate here in Australia, and it's typical for the type of investors that we have, which are global institutional investors. We needed to give our investors confidence with the organisations that we chose to associate ourselves with. Perpetual's the leading brand in trustee services. Our investors required a third-party trustee, and Perpetual had shown that they'd done it before. They have a very impressive client list, and our investors could see similar types of organisations had invested in other entities for which Perpetual provided trustee services. I was expecting a team with enough bandwidth to cope with everything that we throw at them, from simple things like payment processing through to a dedicated manager who looks after our day-to-day needs, right through to the more senior people within trustee services at Perpetual who can help us on a more strategic level, for example when we're setting up new funds. The most important benefits of the Perpetual partnership is that throughout my organisation they've got people that they can reach out to at their level within Perpetual. It starts with the accounts payable team who have great contacts through to payment processing at Perpetual. We have a dedicated manager at Perpetual who really understands our structure and deals with managers in our team. And finally, there's people that I feel I can reach out to who can provide me with strategic advice when I need it. Well, Scape's already a global business. We started in the UK and we've moved to Australia. We've just started a development in Ireland, and we're also looking at the US market. We'll move to any city where there's a high concentration of students. We see ourselves as an urban brand, so we want to be in those key cities which are an education destination. But besides that sort of global expansion, we also see ourselves operating in adjacent industries. For example, there's a lot of discussion at the moment in Australia around the build-to-rent sector, and we have the internal operational skill to really have a look quite closely at that sector in Australia.